Severe and Benning in the morning on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and the 1620 The Zone app. Here are Michael Severe and Damon Benning.
Hour number 2, Severe and Benning in the morning on 1620 The Zone, 402-951-1620 is the number. You can always email us, Equibank inbox, which is always open, Michael at 1620thezone.com, Damon at 1620thezone.com. We welcome in now the McCormick Endowed Athletic Director at Creighton University, Marcus Blossom, joining us here on Severe and Benning in the morning. Congratulations, Marcus. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Double congratulations because your old school knocks off UConn. Did you have a chance to watch that at all? What was that feeling like?
Yeah, I was at the game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they played well, and UConn's reeling a little bit, so it wasn't a real big surprise to us that we could at least play well, and it was nice to get a victory.
Marcus, it's interesting. Having grown up here, gone away to play for a little while, then I came back. Omaha brings a lot to the table. How much, if any, did the city and kind of the place that it is to have a family play into the opportunity to become Creighton's athletic director?
I think it played a lot into it. Married with two young girls, you want to go to a livable city where there's things to do, great schools. And I don't think many people out east know how good of a city Omaha is. I think it's at least twice the size of Worcester, Massachusetts, and Worcester is the second largest city in New England. So, that played a big part in deciding this was the right move for me.
When you look at the job overall and what was left behind after what Bruce did over all these years, when you walk in, what's the biggest thing you need to work on when you get going?
I would say a couple things. First off, meeting with the staff, getting to know different constituents across campus, meeting with alumni, donors, and sponsors, and really getting an understanding of how Creighton fits in the overall landscape in their eyes, how they could help us, and how they see us making it a better product. Also, what I just mentioned, I think we can do a really good job, long term of broadening the reach of Creighton athletics. As I mentioned, it's big in the Midwest. It's probably big in some of the Big East towns, but I think there's a lot of room to grow as far as broadening the scope and the brand recognition of not only the athletic department but the university as a whole, and also the city of Omaha.
Marcus, I've been a part of taking over some programs that have not had a ton of success, been a part of programs, enjoying them that have had success. A lot was in place at Creighton and a tremendous athletic director in Bruce Rasmussen, your basketball program in a really good spot. Is there a degree of difficulty trying to sustain, or do you like the fact that so many pieces are in place? You get to put a different kind of fingerprint on this program as a whole.
I like the fact that pieces are in place. But as I mentioned, I think at the press conference, there's always room to grow, and you have to keep getting better because you're good until you're not. Sometimes it's not a gradual drop off. So if you're not doing the right things day in and day out, the things that Bruce helped build, all of a sudden could come falling down if you're not building it or adding on to it the right way.
Marcus Blossom joining us, athletic director at Creighton University. You've been a money guy, a chief financial officer at Boston College. I know last year was a tough year for schools across the country because of the pandemic. I don't know if you've looked at it enough, but what kind of shape is Creighton in from what you've had a chance to look at and check out the coffers? Are they in good shape? What's it look like financially?
I have not seen that yet. I know a lot of the donors helped the financial situation last year by offering up some of their season ticket contributions as donations when fans weren't allowed to watch the game. So I'd imagine they're in pretty good shape. from some preliminary conversations with the people at Creighton, but I've not dove into it quite yet.
Marcus, it's a lot of lists to dos, right? You're trying to close a chapter, start a new one. You've got a family. You're moving. At what point, with fantastic staffs in place, do you think you'll have a chance to get to sit down and kind of address your coaches with so many quality folks on campus, the Bernthal Booths, the Coach Flannery's, your soccer program's fantastic, obviously Coach Mack, Coach Service, a lot of folks to get to know?
I would say right away. I think that's the first thing to do on the list is getting in and meeting with the coaches and the staff, figure out what they think they need from me, how I can help, what's going well, and what needs to be enhanced a bit. So, as you mentioned, some quality coaches. I've spoken to quite a few of them already. When I get there on the 27th, I'd imagine a lot of meetings in the first few weeks.
Marcus, I grew up a Christian Brothers kid, but I know the Jesuits do good work too. You mentioned the Jesuit way and the tradition and what it meant and what it means at the collegiate level. Why is that so important to the job you're trying to do, having that tradition of what the Jesuits have done in universities?
I think when young men and women go to college, obviously it's not just about, although we want to win championships, we want them to have great athletic experiences, but obviously it's not just about that. It's about, learning in the classroom, and, it's about building young men and women of character and of service to others. You look at where we are in the world today, we need Creighton graduates. We need, graduates of fine institutions that can come out and provide goodwill to the world. So I think that's most important. Obviously, also from a competitive standpoint, there's a lot of great athletic programs that if it's just about athletics, I don't know how successful one could be from an athletic department standpoint, because at some point athletics aren't going to go well. And when you're providing a lot of other things that are good, then you're doing the best service to your student athletes, and it obviously, plays into retention, plays into alumni satisfaction, and all of those things. If it's not just about athletics, again, athletics has to be successful, but if you're doing well in the classroom, if you have a great community of support, if you really enjoyed your time in the city of Omaha, I think your overall student-athlete experience is going to be great.
Marcus, it's an interesting conversation, obviously, with what's transpired in 2020 and race relations. My father was the first African-American head coach to win a national championship at a predominantly white university in Omaha. We are two African-American co-hosts for a morning show in Omaha. And people talk about it. You don't give it much credence. At some point, there's a line that's crossed between I'm just trying to do the job the best I can, but being self-aware enough to know that you are a visual piece for those that aspire to be. How fine of a line is that for you to walk, where you're simply a man trying to do the best job that he can, but the vantage point is that you're an African-American male treading new waters here in Omaha?
That's a good question. There's a little bit, quite honestly, a little bit of a burden to be really, really good at what you do.
Sure.
Not necessarily just for you and your family, but for the next person that looks like you, so they're granted the same opportunity. That was a little bit of the difficulty leaving Holy Cross so soon. It wasn't the plan after 2 years. Part of me was thinking, shoot, will the next man get the opportunity, or will they think the last person that looked like me left too soon? So there's a little bit of a burden, but, I carry it, and that's just the responsibility that comes with the territory.
You talked a lot about, and you talked about it a little bit this morning, winning championships and playing at a high level. When you've had a chance to talk to the coaches, the little bit of chance you had, did you get a good feel that a lot of the programs are already in the right direction towards those championships you're talking about? What was that feel about that part of what you talked about in your opening press conference?
I don't have a great feel for that. Looking from afar, I think we're in a good place in several of our programs. I think some have much room to grow. I don't know how those programs are funded that have the room to grow. And when you're talking winning championships, we're talking conference championships. We're talking advancing the NCAA tournament. I've heard, national championship consideration. That's a lot of work, as you know. It's not going to be easy. So I think some, to answer your question, are in a better spot. But when you're in a conference like the Big East, you can kind of focus on being the best in that league for a while. And if you're the best in that league in a few of those sports, then you're probably in a good spot to contend nationally.
Marcus, following one of the kind of the consummate servant leaders in Bruce Rasmussen has got to be fairly interesting. A lot of your coaches, Coach Mack, Coach Bernthal Booth, Coach Flannery, a lot of these coaches so good in the community, right, and the reverence kind of that they draw. How much of it for you is learning kind of the lay of the land from how they go about doing their day-to-day and making it applicable to what your strengths are?
Well, I don't know if it's so much watching them. Each person does things a little bit differently. It's probably more, for me, understanding the culture, understanding, how to navigate an entirely new city and state. Probably the first few months I'll be, deep in Creighton athletics and maybe not too much time for the community aspect of it, but it's probably primarily just understanding the culture.
Marcus Blossom joining us here on Severe and Benning in the Morning. Last one from me. We've seen all these changes come into college sports. A lot of them involve football, I know, but in terms of the Big East, which you've looked at so far, Val Ackerman's done a great job, I know, but would you like to see more expansion in the Big East, maybe bringing in some more basketball-first schools? Is that something you'd like to see? I know it's early on in your tenure, of course.
If it adds value, yes. Whatever institution that is. But I think it's a strong league as it is with the schools that are part of it. I think a couple things are important for it to continue to be strong are, those non-conference partnerships. I think there's partnerships with the Big 12 and the Big 10 right now. You want to continue those or maybe even grow those partnerships. I think the deal with Fox Sports 1 is important. That's been a great asset to the league, as well as having Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament. Those are probably three of the most important issues facing the Big East. But I think you always want to keep your eyes and ears open, always want to be ready to move or ready to add if you see an opportunity that could enhance your league.
Marcus, last one from me before we let you go. So appreciative of your time. Where did name, image, and likeness land for you as you try to take a look at the new landscape of college athletics, and considering that a lot of your sports programs do recruit well on the national level, using name, image, and likeness as an enhancer to the product you're trying to put out?
That's an interesting one. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if you've been paying too much attention to it, but you've seen student athletes get large deals that are very good student athletes and are pretty popular. You've also seen some that may not play at all, that may have a different appeal to them, whether it's, they're attractive or they have skill sets outside the court or the field. So, I think it's something that we probably should have done years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, what does it matter, if you have an ability to generate revenue outside your sport? I think the important piece is what the NCAA or the conference does in terms of guardrails and making sure those agreements are truly NIL agreements and not something else. But I think it's an advantage for Creighton student athletes that you're in a smaller city, like Omaha. You're more of a big fish than you would be in, say, New York or Boston. So I think there's opportunity there. What I'll try to communicate to the student athletes is that's great. Take advantage of all of that if you can. But you're really, really going to make your money if you graduate and get a great degree, or if you're spending a lot of time or most of your other time working on your craft. Yeah. If you become an elite jump shooter or one of the best volleyball blockers in the world, that's really where potentially a lot of your income could come from. So make sure they keep that in mind while they're pursuing those other NIL agreements.
Marcus, we really appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations again. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It's funny because
very soft-spoken.
As he was saying those things about NIL, I think Nebraska and Omaha is different in one way. I'm not sure how it is the rest of the country, but I think the female athletes here are going to profit at a higher level than other places. You know, Creighton already values their female athletes. You could look at the buildings and what Bruce did in terms of the programs, and of course we know about Nebraska. I per dollar, outside of maybe Connecticut, I think Nebraska per dollar for their female athletes is going to make more than anyone else.
Yeah,
because people in Nebraska love women's sports, love it, and will support it at a high level. I think they're going to make really good money. I think it's different than most places. You know, you're not going to see that in most states, I don't think. I can look in Louisiana, a state I know very well in Louisiana. That's something, as much as Louisiana Tech was really good at women's basketball and LSU has had their success, it's just they don't talk about it as much as here. And they're covering it at the high school level of these young women a lot of times into college. These coaches are high profile. I think they're going to do well.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I'm going to watch kind of would you rather take over a successful job or build?
I think it depends on how old I am. As a younger person, I probably would want to come in and build because I'd want to be able to put my name on the thing, you know, and say I did this, this, and this. But as an older person, I probably would want to come into a place that's more established.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting.
And he's a young man
because it's such a family feel. There's you get the sense that there's I guess you'd say a Creighton way, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How to interact, the dialogue, the presence in the community.
Bruce was a grandpa too, you know.
And he was kind of that gentle spirit. The overseer, right, was not, but yet wasn't afraid to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
That would be those are some hard shoes to fill. And how about the reverence that his coaches had for him? When we talk to Coach Flan, or we talk to Coach Bernthal Booth, who we'll talk to tomorrow, or we talk to Coach Mack, and they kind of harken back to the relationship what they have with their athletic director.
Oh, yeah.
That would be very difficult to come in and because
it's going to be difficult for him.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is
win over people
because those
really
are some powerful relationships.
Yeah.
Really powerful relationships.
Sickle cell disease is the most common blood disorder in the world. I'm not reading that. He reads that. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. I thought it was a read. My fault. We'll take a break. When we come back, this day in sports history here on Severe and Bay in the Morning.